Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. We're on episode 5. Shout out to us for being consistent of Show and Tell. Today, I have a guest who I'm so excited for us to sit down and talk with. I think things are going to get very insightful, a little deep. But I think we all can learn a lot. I mean, how many of us are really well versed in the art world and specifically the sculpting, ceramics edition of art? I know a lot of us know about painting and music, but never really sat down and spoke with a sculptor before. So this artist is from the Detroit, Michigan area. He has been an artist for over a decade. He's traveled around the world, have collaborated on different pieces, has been commissioned to do different pieces, and he has an exhibit coming up this week, this Thursday actually, in Muskegon, Michigan. So without further ado, let's give a round of applause for my guest, Austen Brantley. Come in, Austen. Comfortable. Let me get it together. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling beautiful.
You feeling good? Okay, cool. I'm so happy that you're here. I can't wait to dive into this conversation. We met not too long ago, and then I feel like from our initial interaction,
met at Spotlight.
Yeah, Spotlight. It was, you were just kind of intense. You were asking me questions. I feel like, are you peering into my soul? And let me just think some things out. And then we ran into each other again, and then it was just kind of good vibes from that point on. So I'm excited to sit down and talk with you, and I thank you for also giving me the privilege to see your private space, your studio, which was actually absolutely amazing for me, in my opinion. I was just in awe of all of the beautiful artwork that you've done, and the fact that, excuse me, the visions that you've had to bring these pieces to life, and the stories behind them, and I'm just in awe, and I think it's absolutely amazing. So you were called the Quiet Sculptor. Where did that come from? Austen Brantley, the Quiet Sculptor.
I think the music and stuff.
Okay, all right, yeah. I didn't take band up.
Yeah, I would draw on that. It was like a coping mechanism for me. So it was
I read somewhere that your mom was an artist. She did this. Is that where you picked up drawing from? Did she draw? What kind of baby.
Yeah, I might be the art baby.
You're the art
yeah.
baby. That's amazing. But your dad he wasn't an artist. He was just a supporter.
He was a supporter, yeah. But he also wanted to like challenge my mom too, because I think my mom was kind of worried that she wouldn't be able to sell things and stuff like that. And I actually have that for show and tell.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to tell you when you go there, because I can't wait to see that if I do one else.
And they met doing that, they met doing their job, but then I think they connected doing that art fair together.
So the influence was heavy from your mom and then your parents. So it's like, it probably seemed like then if they were into it, so when you decided you wanted to become an artist as your career, and I'm not even going to say career, because I feel like anybody who does artistry, like as their, and I'm just put in quotations, career, I feel like that's kind of more of like a purpose,
right,
in a way, like more of like a path, because you're choosing to be in this gift and to take advantage of this gift and share it with the world. I feel like it's something that's like you're really in tune with it. So like, at what point did you realize for yourself that you wanted to be an artist? Like, this was going to be your thing?
I think I always kind of knew, but I never knew. I think it was more about trying to figure out why I wanted to be an artist. And I remember this one day in my ceramics class where like all my sculptures were broken by other students.
At school?
Yeah, at school.
At like high school?
In high school, yeah. In one of my first ceramic classes. And I remember that I'd made all these sculptures, and my sculptures were specifically targeted. And they were like, the heads were snapped off, or I found carrots in my sculpture, stuff like that. Like, it was like, I wasn't like bullied like up close. Like, no one ever tried to bully me or tried to like do anything to my face. But behind my back, people would do whatever they could to mess with me or bother me. And I remember just like being kind of, I was like over it, I was just like, wow, these kids just stoop so low, They would never have done that if I was like there in front of them. They would never have done that. I think they were honestly afraid of me. But I remember going to the bathroom and trying to cool off, and just remembering that they could break whatever I make, They could break 1,000 pieces, but they would never break me. And I just went back in there and I just kept sculpting. I would sculpt in that class till after the bell rang, like 15 minutes. I'd be late to my next class. I would try and sneak into the ceramic class after school. I mean, my senior year, they gave me a little studio because my work got so big.
Wow.
And I just got very passionate. I started winning awards as a teenager when I was like 16, 17 years old.
Wow.
With my sculptures that I was finishing.
What was your first award? Do you remember?
I won a national scholastics portfolio review, and I got a gold key, which is like the highest honor you can get.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. Do you still have the key?
Maybe. My mom keeps everything.
Okay, yeah.
That was like my first big award, and I was like I worked really hard at it for months. I mean, to make work that I felt had like a similar breadth, and I remember that was after that feeling, and I remember those feelings, like finishing that work and like submitting it and hearing back that I won something was like really incredible.
Wow. So was it good in that moment, like after you had your first award, was it in that moment that you realized for sure that like, hey, I have a gift, like this is my gift right here, the sculpting, be able to, my hands are like magic wands.
Like magic. I don't know if I felt like it was magic, but it felt like therapy. Just like drawing in a way. Yeah. It felt like therapy for me. I went through a lot in that school at Berkeley High School. I think more than I realized at the time. I had a lot of microaggressions I received. I mean, there were so many things that I went through in trying to discover who I was. And trying to discover your identity in high school is always hard, but I think it's especially hard when you're Black. I think it's especially hard. People are always trying to tell you who you are, and they're projecting what they've heard about other Black people onto you, and that's happened my whole life.
Was this something that like you experienced with other Black people or non-Black people?
Everybody.
Where'd you get the most of it from?
I wouldn't say most. I don't know if either way, it always felt like I was like put in a box, you know? Always felt like I had to be a certain way, or it was hard to find who I was, you know?
I can understand that. I can understand that. So then after high school, you decided like, all right, I'm about to just go into this. I mean, did you go to college? You went to college for a little bit, or?
I couldn't afford art school, so I went to Oakland Community College.
Okay.
And that's where I had my first sculpture class, where I met a ceramic professor that really changed my life in terms of like helping me learn about what I was doing, like in terms of like creating a narrative around my work, thinking about what I was making. And that's when I really learned that art was about ideas as much as it was about the craftsmanship and the technique.
What do you mean by that? Like art is more about ideas?
It's
like,
just as much about the narrative of what you're creating, because if you just have technique and craftsmanship, that's amazing. But if you don't have anything to say with it, if you don't find your voice, then it won't be received as well. I don't think. To connect with people, I think you can connect with people through your craft, but what inspires them or what keeps them coming back is how you make them feel. And I think to do that, you need a strong narrative surrounding your work. I think that's a goal of every artist, is to find their voice. But the thing I think is that you already have your voice. You just have to uncover it. And I think that's within the things that you experience when you're very young, understanding your culture, understanding why it's your culture. Like, I think a question that I ask myself a lot is, why am I doing this? Yeah. And why do I keep doing it, you know?
Is this like the first, is that kind of like the first step in like your design process? Like, so if you're about to sculpt a piece, like, you know, is the first, like, that the first thing you ask, like, why am I doing it? Or do you already have a vision in your mind? Or is it kind of like it's a you know, one, what is it? This may come first. Sometimes this may come first another time, or like, what is that design? Yeah, what is that process like for you when you're deciding you're about to do a piece, whether it's been commissioned, whether it's something that you're just doing on your own, you know, what is that process for you?
I think the process starts with, I think the first thing I think about is I like the space. I just think about space in general. I think about, the way I would describe it is, I think about form. Like the form of something taking form. I believe in manifestation. So for me, the first thoughts I have are maybe a form, or what kind of form I would like to make. And then I'll put a narrative with that. I get a lot of inspiration from when I travel and experience different cultures, because that helps me really think about how other cultures see the thing that I'm doing, because I view sculpture as a language.
Oh, I'd never thought about that like that.
Yeah, and when I'm traveling, a lot of times I don't understand the languages that, you know, I'm hearing, but if I meet another sculptor, I can communicate with them through the tools that we use and the materials that we use. Wow. And doing those collaborations, I was able to connect with them through our materials and through our tools. I would just know what we're taught, like what we're doing, just through that. Like it has its own language.
Wow, I never thought about that being its own language. Like artists being able to communicate through like the tools they use. I mean, I get like you can communicate something through your finished product, because obviously that's not the whole point, but the whole point is to evoke emotion. But just thinking about artist to artist, like, you know, communicating that way. So like, you have traveled the world, you have done collaborations with other people around the world. Like, how did that, if we're thinking about that process, you know, how does that even start? Like, if you're doing a collaboration with someone who barely speaks the same language that you're doing, and you have these tool sets, like, and then you also have your own process. I feel like I'm just putting so many little pieces together. Like, how does that even go about, like, for the collaboration to even start? Like,
Facebook. I remember being like 17 years old and just adding every sculptor that I could find on Facebook and asking for critiques, and that gave me like a network of other sculptors to learn from and also share my work with, and look at their work and talk about their work and why they were doing what they were doing. And they were amazing people that I got to learn from. I remember going to Cartagena last summer, and
Cartagena, Colombia.
Yeah, Cartagena, Colombia. And I sculpted with a sculptor live outside in a square, and we probably had maybe over 300 visitors just paying attention to a sculpt.
Wow.
We sculpted a live model, and we had them pose in front of us, and we sculpted a bust of them. And I brought him tools back from America and some art books, and he had lost his home in Venezuela and his whole craft, all his studio, like everything, and he was starting a new life in Colombia. He said he was going there for the American dream.
In Colombia?
That's pretty hard. It's a pretty hard life there.
Yeah, I guess Colombia. Well, Colombia can be considered the U.S. and South America. I don't know.
Not really.
No? Okay, I've never been.
I mean, this guy was a very tough guy. You know, he had been through a lot. I think a lot of sculptors are very tough, you know. And he got so much, we all got so much notoriety, but he was able to start a whole business and pick up students. And he was able to get commissions off of us sculpting in that square.
Wow.
And I found that really beautiful.
That is beautiful that you were able to bless him while you were blessing yourself, or you were being blessed yourself. Like, so what is Cartagena? Is that like the one place that you've traveled to so far has been the most
I really liked it there.
To you?
I think I was really inspired there because it was also it taught me about the South American slave trade. I think in school I was more familiar with the North Atlantic slavery trade, but to go there and actually be there and study how slaves lived back there was really interesting to me, and how they kind of developed culture there. It's very different, and if you think about it, we have the same background as them, but it's a whole different culture, and that was really interesting for me to see.
What about that trip inspired you the most?
I think what inspired me the most was like small details of meeting someone. I think the whole trip was just an adventure, honestly, and it was really cool to see, really cool to meet other artists and see what they were creating, and also it was interesting to see the difference, the difference in how hard it is to be a sculptor here versus there. It was, and it's incredibly hard. I'm always like, sometimes frustrated with the commercial side of the art world, but I mean, even to try to become a sculptor there is incredibly difficult. And that was really, really valuable for me to learn.
So when you say that that you capture the details of people, what comes to mind is they're capturing the essence of what it means to be human, of a human experience, like in different ways. And I imagine this is like pretty much this theme reoccurs for you every time you travel any other places. So when you think about that, the essence of capturing a human, and you put that in your artwork, like, is that part of like do you go into that vision automatically thinking like, I'm embodying the essence from the people that I met in Cartagena, I'm embodying the essence of people I've met in Italy in this particular art form or this art piece right here? Like, is it?
I think everybody I've met inspires me in a certain way. And I take something from them, you know. I don't believe in good or bad in the same fashion. I think things are just what they are, and every experience that I've had has made me who I am. And I think I bring that to whatever I'm doing. Because a lot of, even just like getting to the studio, even just like picking out colors, even just getting clay or driving, like I'm always thinking about everything. And I'm sculpting whenever I'm doing anything, whenever I'm just sitting down, I'm in my head, I'm always thinking, I'm always creating.
Yeah, dang, so it's like it never stops. It's like always going. And you probably have like a sketchbook somewhere with like thousands of other art pieces that have yet to be taken from that sketchbook and become real life. I remember we were talking a little bit and you were saying about clay and how clay is like, there's so many different types of clay around the world. And you have like a few favorites, or there's some that are very kind of hard to get your hands on or discontinued. You enlighten me about the clay experience, because I'm just thinking like, I know clay in Georgia, and I know the basic like gray clay that I don't know.
Clay is, I mean, it's like,
what makes
it's
good
such
clay?
an ancient material, you know, just think about it. Like I love working with it because it's literally the earth, you know, like to turn a piece into bronze, you're really destroying the environment. And I think sometimes it's worth that, especially when it's like commemorating someone who did like a huge honor or service in the world, which is the only reason I would make a sculpture of somebody, is if they did something extremely dope, you know. But for me as an artist, I also want to make things that are intimate. I think clay is a very intimate material because every piece is an original. Every single piece that I do is an original. I've made at least 1,000 sculptures in ceramics. And each one teaches me something new. And I figure that the clay, it matters what clay I use too. Like there's so many thousands of different types of clay, and they all require so many different minerals and different materials that are put into them. So the clay that I use is a low fire stoneware clay with fine grog.
What's grog?
Grog is fired clay that's destroyed and put into little bits, and then that's put back into the wet clay, so that the clay has a tougher, stronger body.
Okay, I got that.
That's what I sculpt with. But sometimes anything can happen in this world, especially because everything's so monopolized. So there's a mine in Texas that provided all the talc for this particular clay in North America, and since that was bought up, they've had to discontinue that whole brand, you know, of clay, that whole, you know, and that really hit me because I am a person that likes the feel of things and the touch of things, and how, you know, if I go to a clay company, I'm touching the clay so I can see, I don't know if I like how it touches me, you know?
How it touches you back.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't think about that. So you touch the clay and it kind of touches you back. It's like
absolutely.
A fusion.
I think it's like, definitely like, I feel very connected to it. I mean, I get to touch earth for a living. I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I never think you're providing so many different perspectives of ways I never even thought about when it comes to clay, just being an artist in general. So would you say that, we didn't say that, I feel like you're on your way there, but being a master of your craft, like close to being a master of your craft at least? That's
up to other people to say. I'm always a student of my craft, always.
You said that like it humbles you, right? How does
Yeah.
it like?
I have pieces that get destroyed every day, like that I'm still learning. It still kicks my butt every day, you know.
Dang.
I'm still learning how to fire different things, and I love the idea of it being about learning and experimenting, because that's what keeps it fun for me. I don't ever get bored because there's always something new to achieve, and there's always something to challenge myself. And it's a lot of understanding of nature and science and physics, math, and it's an analytical process being an artist. And I find that like the most interesting part of it is that it's not just painting or drawing or like being good at understanding the human body. It's like all these different things that you have to understand to even create a sculpture.
And it seems like, in a way, just hearing all this, it seems like artists have to master a form of detachment, in a way. Like, you can be attached to your art, but at the same time, like, it can also be messed up like that. And like, if it's like that, it's like, is your life over? Or you're just gonna be like, all right, this happened, I'm just gonna make another piece, you know? I wonder how that shows up in like real life. They know, like, the relationships that you have with your art
With my work?
pieces. Yeah, your work versus.
I think I have more of a relationship with the ability of doing it than just like, it just comes out of me. So, like I love all my work, like I can revisit them, but like I feel like the ability of doing it and the expression of doing it is what means the most to me. Being able to do it in general is the best feeling for me, because every piece is. I think I'll probably, if I'm able, I'll leave, thousands and thousands of original pieces of art.
Oh gosh, around the world. What's your most prized one that you've done so far? Which one that you the most
I always
proud of?
say I haven't created it yet, but I really love my piece, Boy Holds Flower.
Oh, that's
And
a
I
very
worked with
beautiful piece.
like a 6-year-old model who posed for the sculpture, and we would talk about all like the cartoons that he liked while he was posing for the sculpture. And he was a really amazing model, and it helped me kind of work through some things that I had a problem with in my childhood. And the sculpture is called Boy Holds Flower. For me, that's really important because I feel like a lot of men can't be who they truly are, like, and doesn't have to do with anything with like your orientation or anything. It has to do with like just being a human. I feel like a lot of men are afraid to express themselves when it comes to crying or nature or just being a person at times, being real, like being vulnerable. And I found showing a boy to be holding a flower was such a vulnerable, position to be in, because if I did that as a kid, I was bullied. If I showed any sentimentality or any like curiosity in something that wasn't like masculine, I was bullied by other men. And I was commissioned by the Canfield Consortium, by Kim and Rhonda Theus, who are uplifting neighborhoods in Detroit by making sure that all the vacant lots and things like that have something reflective and beautiful in them. And they worked with me personally and asked me to create what I wanted to make in this lot that's on the east side. And I said I wanted to put a statue of a boy holding a flower. And it was working on it. It only took me probably 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And because it was already inside me, like it just came out. And I think a lot of energy was trapped.
Men as well, like a lot of men, they can't express themselves just because of the pressures of society and just, you know, how they're supposed to perceive, so they're supposed to show up as a man. Do you think that so pretty much that piece just was like you spoke for everybody, every man who couldn't speak, who wants to be vulnerable and show themselves?
I don't know if that was my intention, but I wanted to just express
media, and the more awareness around mental health, I think that men are finding more ways to express themselves and be vulnerable without it necessarily negatively dictating their masculinity. You know, like they can show a different side of themselves. I think that's amazing. You have this piece right here. I feel like this one right here, this angelic piece, is like, looks like a woman just fully embodying who she is, and just look like she's sunbathing, if I would say it. She's sunbathing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What was your inspiration behind this one? What is this piece called?
This piece doesn't have a title yet, but it's in my series called Shared Strands, and it's about the connection between hair in a person. And I think of braids as being something that's such a beautiful way of texture and form, and I wanted to combine that with the female form. So that's how this piece kind of came about.
Yeah, she's sitting on this pile of braids, or she's just opening herself up to these pile of braids, and I feel like she feels safe and assured of who she is. I mean, she's kind of like spread eagle a little bit, you know, where I feel like most of us would want to sit closed up. Like, look at my legs are just kind of crossed right now, but like we want to sit a bit more closed up. But I think this is a great depiction of the essence of a woman. You're a really great artist.
Oh,
I feel very emotional right now. Like I'm feeling it, like, yeah, I know, yeah, kind of deep, like. Yeah, but so all right. So what did you bring today for show and tell?
Ooh, today for show and tell I brought a piece that my dad made. He called this paint immersion art because he wanted to make something with texture and form, and he made this in an art fair that he did with my mom to get her to try and sell her work. He believed in her, and he was like, you can sell your work, and they did this show together, and he made this for it. And
wow.
I found it really, really beautiful that he wasn't an artist, and he just wanted to make art. And they did an art fair together. That means they had to get a booth, and they had to set it all up nice, get tablecloths, all that kind of stuff. They had to get a tent for it, and set all that up. And I remember when I was 17, I had my first art fair at the Berkeley Art Bash.
Okay.
And I was doing caricatures as well. I was drawing people like cartoons, and I also had my sculptures for sale. And my parents were there helping me, so I found it sentimental that that's how they kind of connected. And my first show was at an art fair.
And they're here to what? So there is texture in this. Like like is that paint? Like how did?
Yeah, this is paint and also joint compound, because my dad was also he also did construction, so he used joint compound, and then he did like square here, and I really like the texture right here, and then the texture in the middle.
This reminds me of like when you go into black homes, and like sometimes the walls are a little bit textured. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's not stucco.
I think so, something like that.
Stucco, yeah, and the walls are kind of, or the ceiling is a bit textured. That just reminds me of the black experience. And then I feel like also it's like the outline of it is the doorway, and as you continue to go through the doorway down the hall, the light brightens up and up.
I think you would love to hear that.
Well, Dad, you can watch this interview. You get my feedback on it. I love it. I think it's really dope.
I love it too.
I think it's really dope.
I always have it hanging up in my studio. To just remind me of my origins as an artist, because art fairs were the first thing that I did to get started. This Thursday I have a show at the Muskegon Museum of Art, and I remember that I didn't get there, from going to an art school and then going to get an MFA at a prestigious art school. I did everything on my own.
You taught yourself.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was from the help of having others to support you and research,
mentors,
trial and error.
Yes, yeah.
Wow. So it's kind of like, in a way, do you think you develop your own kind of art form of ceramics then that I feel like, how they have for painting, there's different types of abstract and then contemporary, where would you fall in that when it comes to ceramics? What would your art form can be considered?
I think I don't like to be in the label.
I feel that.
I really don't like to be labeled. If I were to put a label on it, which I wouldn't, I think people would say that it's Afro-Surrealism. Which doesn't make sense to me, because in Africa, people were already making stuff what I do thousands of years ago, and they didn't have a word for it or a label for it, and they did it for a specific purpose. For rituals or to commemorate someone who had passed on, and they would give that to the family to honor that person. And I find that very beautiful, and I feel like that's deep within everybody. I feel like everyone is still trying to connect with that part of them that they don't know, and that's a really beautiful thing about being an African American, because you walk with this unknowing but knowing. Yeah. That's something's in you that's trying to get out, and I think art is the greatest catalyst for that.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that. That's why we as Black people are so gifted in the arts, like dance, sculpting, painting, just everything, music. African American music literally drives culture and inspires the culture all over the world, hands down. It's its own genre. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but I definitely can agree with you on that. So then, congratulations on your art exhibit in Muskegon. What is it? Do you remember how it felt to get your first, to be paid for your first piece of art, your first big piece of art?
My first big piece.
Yeah.
It felt amazing, man. I can't even remember how much went into that, what I had to go through to be able to even get there. I think I made hundreds of sculptures at that point, but there were still so many ups and downs with my career. There would be times where I was completely broke, and I had to have dimes to just put gas in my van, and then there'd be days like this day, a collector came from Chicago. He just he had a personal driver drive him all the way from Chicago and bought everything in my studio. And man, I remember my mom saw, I showed her the check and stuff, and she started screaming glory. She went outside, was screaming. We were so happy because it was a family effort, and me being an artist, I had so much support from my family. And I can never repay them for that, I'm still figuring out how to.
Yeah, I mean, by continuing to pass it down, continuing that legacy, leaving things behind. And even then, you're a father, right? And so, you have your son, by continuing to pass down the things that you've learned about being an artist or what it means to be an artist. Have you already started that, talking to your son about, being an artist or finding his voice through art form?
I think. He's already drawing. He draws more than me.
Really?
I mean, he absolutely loves it, and my family encourages him like the same way they encourage me. It's really beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Got it in him for sure.
Oh my goodness! Does he ever? You get him come to the studio and he starts playing with the clay. He understands it. He
loves drawing a lot, like and color a lot. I think one day he'll mess with clay, but I think he's like really into drawing. So I just watch him do that, you know, and I just make sure he's got enough colors to use. Make sure that he has all the colors to express himself. So
I fuck with that. Now, what would you say is your kryptonite?
My kryptonite?
Yeah.
I say the only thing that really like stops me from being in a really creative mode is thinking about money. Like, I think, like I feel like when I think about money, like God walks out the door, you know, like, making art is supposed to be about expressing yourself, and then trying to survive and do it can be really, really hard, and it's sometimes difficult to find a balance because you think about what you need to create to survive, but then you're making a product and not art, you know?
Yeah, I definitely understand. It's crazy because today I was listening to this book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace. His name was Wallace something, or maybe his last name is Wallace. I was listening to it on Clubhouse, and he was saying like there's a difference between being competitive and then being creative, and he says like you pretty much lose when you do things and you start trying to be very competitive about stuff. I mean, it's definitely in us as humans, but when you take more of the competitive approach, you definitely lose. However, if you stick to the artistic value, the creative part aspect of it, you win. Like you never really see a quote unquote bad day, because you know that it's all part of the process. It all just happens. It fuses together with, you know, with creation. You know, sometimes things are made, and like you said earlier, sometimes they get destroyed, and it very much so humbles you. So like I thought that was, I'm gonna send you, I think I have that book. I can send it to you.
I would love to.
Actually, I got it on Audible, but I ended up buying it on Audible, but I do have it on Clubhouse. I was listening to it on Clubhouse.
Nice.
Okay. So let me ask you some random. Oh, actually, before I get into that, no, I'm gonna ask you some random questions.
Okay.
All right. What is the difference between a comet and a shooting star?
A comet and a shooting star. A shooting star is falling, right? Like it's like a meteorite that's like falling somewhere, and then a comet is like I think has more of a trajectory. It's going like way past, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I think so. I think a shooting star is actually like burning up somewhere in the atmosphere.
Right.
Like, yeah, it's kind of like trying to fall to the earth, but it's like burning up.
I'd rather be a comet. I always tell my friends if I was going to be reincarnated into anything, it would be like a comet.
Really?
Which is a weird thing to say to someone, but yeah, I'd rather be a comet than a shooting star.
Hydrogen and helium.
Hydrogen and helium.
That's what the sun is made out of, and I think all stars are made out of. Is a comet a star?
I'm not sure. I don't think it is. I don't think so. A star is like a star, like it doesn't move. But a comet, I don't think it is.
Yeah, comets, they do move. Okay, never mind. All right then. What about if you were a seasoning?
Huh?
If you were a seasoning.
Seasoning. So what?
If you were seasoning, oh my bad. If you were seasoning, what kind of seasoning would you be?
If I was seasoning?
Yeah.
I think I'm a subtle person, so I think I would be like lemon pepper. But I would make that chicken.
A good one.
I would like make that chicken bomb. You know, I make some fried chicken really bomb, but I would just be, you wouldn't need a lot of me, you know?
I like lemon pepper because it's the tanginess, and then the peppery is just kind of, it's like it's like a savory and tangy type of, I love lemon pepper. That would be on. I had like salt and vinegar chicken wings like a long time ago.
Ooh.
Those were actually really, really good. Okay. All right. Now, how would you describe your ego?
How would I describe my ego?
Yeah.
I try to keep it healthy, but I also understand that as an artist, you need one. You have to wake up with the audacity of even calling yourself an artist. You gotta be like, here, look what I made to people, like, and people are like, so,
Yeah.
But you have to have that confidence to call yourself an artist. And you need to make sure that you are open to receive criticism and also receive other people's perspectives and opinions. And that takes a balance. I think everything should be in balance.
And
I feel like it's very important for me to like make sure that when I walk into any room that it's with confidence, not arrogance. I think arrogance comes from insecurity, and I've definitely had times where I felt like arrogant because I was feeling insecure. And the best moments of my life have been from understanding my self-worth and having good self-esteem, and I think that's where confidence comes from, in my opinion.
Yeah, seems like you have to have that definitely have to have that as an artist. But how do you manage with the insecurities?
Insecurities?
That do come about?
I just know that everybody else has them too, so it just is what it is.
Yeah. I could definitely understand that. All right, so here's what this is crazy.
Yeah.
Should you trust people who are ticklish? And if someone isn't ticklish, does that mean they're dead inside?
Uh-oh. This is a dark question because I think that I am ticklish, but I always make sure that people don't know it. Like if somebody tickles me, I'll just hold it in as much as I can and like make sure they never do it again. You know what I mean? Like if people tickle me and I don't react, they'll never do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't, cause I feel like if I tickle someone, they're probably like me and they're pretending that they're not ticklish.
Yeah, so. Why you feel like, why pretending that you're not ticklish? Why you gotta hold it in? Why can't you
I gotta hold it in.
Why can't you
just let it out? Because then they'll do it again. It's too much, man.
You don't want to laugh?
I look weird when I laugh. I'm tickled, bro. Like,
what do you got? One of those crazy laughs?
I got one of those, yeah, exactly. Yeah, snorting, all that. Like, get some boogers out of my nose.
Oh my gosh, that's too much. I mean, that's life, right?
Yeah.
That's having a human experience. Speaking of human experiences, in passing, you mentioned that you're a nudist.
A nudist? Uh-oh.
Spell it. How are you?
It depends on where I am, which country I'm in.
Oh, okay.
It depends. That's all. Where I'm at.
So
I remember I did a photo shoot here in Michigan. I went to Nordhaus Dunes in Wilderness, and I did a photo shoot with 13 models, and I directed the photo shoot, came up with a concept, and that was my first experience, like being naked outside, like around other people, full on naked, because I was directing this photo shoot and I was also in it. I also modeled in it, and I remember like everybody getting naked, and I was kind of nervous to like be naked in front of everybody because I usually like have other people pose in front of in front of me, and I've never been like a model like that before, so it felt so good. Like, and the photo shoot is called Black Utopia. It was a part of my Behind the Mask series, and I made sculptures of masks. I made sculpture masks of each model's face, so they all wore their own faces in the photo shoot. So it became this idea about identity and also like a new tribal expression of being African American, because I viewed them as African American masks, just like in a way touching on African masks in the past. And when we did this photo shoot, there are people that weren't black, walking past us, seeing us do this thing, and it felt so interesting. It looked like something on a National Geographic or like, you know, on the Discovery Channel, you know. It was really beautiful, and it taught me to just be okay with in my skin and like be okay with just knowing that underneath, you know, I'm okay with that. I think I've always, in the art world, it's always been something, it's very interesting to do nudes. Like it does something to your work. People look at it differently if it has clothes on or if it's nude. And I feel like in America, we're not used to nude art. There's a lot of public art that gets taken down because it's nude, like, and people aren't comfortable with that here.
Yeah. What do you do with art with your muse, or what do you call the people who are posing for you? What are they called?
Models.
Your models. Duh. Duh. For your models, like, do they deal with body dysmorphia, or, you know, they get to critiquing themselves, because it's a very vulnerable thing to sit up there and just be naked in front of somebody, you know? Like, how do you ease their mind, or what do you tell them to think, how to think about their bodies, you know, when they think about?
I don't know if I can do that, but what I can try to at least do is like make sure that they're comfortable. I don't make any comments or anything about someone's body, so I would feel like they'd be comfortable. If I can do that, I make sure that they're, you know, like in a comfortable setting, that they have whatever they need, and I talk about, you know, the artwork, and I make sure I also just observe, like, if they're a certain way, if they're even uncomfortable, that's a part of, I'm just documenting what they're experiencing. And that's up to the audience to try and understand what they're experiencing as well. So I'm just like showing what I see and like translating it in a way.
Okay, so then yeah, never mind, I was about to say something else. So I'm almost about to wrap up, but I have a few more questions.
Sure.
I want to go back and revisit to be a master of your craft. If you think that's relative to people, about whether or not you're a master of your craft, then what do you think it means for someone to be a master of their craft? And is that something that, do you think that can ever be reached? Or is it like we're always constantly getting better, or always you know, we're always perfecting our craft in different areas, and, you know, the craft is always being perfected. So yeah, so my question is, what does it mean to be a master of your craft?
I think it has to do with being a student, being willing to learn. I think it just means being open-minded and having a severe dedication to what you're doing. A severe dedication. I mean, you have to do it. You have to dedicate your whole life, and I think that's what will make someone a master in other people's eyes. Yeah. Not in mine, but, you know, I think if you want to use the word mastery, I think that's what it means.
Okay. So, what would you tell others, like students, or someone who is just starting their journey into becoming and being an artist? And they want to go full time like you are, and really
get ready for a rocky road, 'cause I think being an artist is an uphill battle in this world. Whenever you express yourself, people can tell you no, like, and that's something I have to be okay with as an artist. Like, I have to be okay with people maybe never knowing my work. And you can put so much significant time into trying to make something that's going to touch somebody, and they can just walk right by you like it never happened. And that's something like that I think about, like, if a tree falls in a forest, did it ever happen at all if no one's there to experience it? But I have to realize that if I cut down that tree, I was there. You know, I did it. And even if no one notices my work, I know that I made it, and I know that I put a lot of effort into it, and that's what I'm here to do. I'm not here to like jump through all these hoops of life and all that. I feel like people are here to express themselves and to live. That's my purpose as a human being. And if I'm persecuted for that, then what does that mean about the world that I live in? That's not me.
I feel that. That's a really great perspective to have. And I feel like because you do have that perspective, even when you do receive those no's, they don't affect you as bad. It's just like, all right, the next one is for me then. Or like everything that you need is going to eventually come to you. Every opportunity that you're seeking out or that's seeking you out.
Or it won't.
It's going to
find. I'm okay with that too.
The ones that are meant for you are gonna be,
I think that's a really good way to look at it, but I also understand that it's okay. There's a lot of artists in history that never got any recognition for their work.
Yeah, dang.
There's so many that put so much effort into what they did, and we don't know their names. But I think the work is what honors them more than anything. And I really like the fact that you can go to an art museum and maybe not even know the artist, but connect with something that human being made. It's not even about who they were exactly. It's about, wow, another human made this thing. I should be making stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, wow, how did they do that? How did they come up with these colors and this picture, and how did they make the faces?
Yeah, I think it's all about connection, and I think for me, it's like so much deeper than just our names and where we come from, like it's, you can connect with somebody through art, like really connect with someone.
Yeah. So being where you are right now, like if you had to go back and tell, your younger self, the one who was sitting in that 9th grade, in that ceramics class, their first year, their 9th grade ceramics class, and just recently got all their ceramics broken, and knowing that you're going to be doing commissions and working with different artists all around the world and have a studio one day, like what would you tell that that little Austen, if you could go back and tell him about
I don't think he was little. I think he's tougher than me right now, honestly.
The younger Austen.
I think he was, I wouldn't have to tell him anything. I would just look him in the eyes and just nod at him, like with respect. That's all I would do.
And he would know. I love that. Because
I feel like who we were in our past was maybe even stronger than we are now because they brought us here.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think about that. I think about like who I am today, and I think about, and someone pointed this out, I think I saw this on the internet, like literally all my ancestors survived in order for me to like be here in the flesh right here today. So it's like, if I have to make the most of my life.
Like, what could you tell them?
Yeah.
Like, what could you possibly tell them? But I feel like sometimes our nonverbal communication means much more. I don't think I would be able to say anything.
Yeah.
I would only be able to look at them with my eyes and say everything that I can.
But they're there watching over you and making sure that everything goes according to plan, as it should.
I like that.
I like that too. So what's next for you?
I'm working on a new series called Cracks in the Flesh, and that's a very personal series to me. It's about kind of the duality of like what we talked about, the ego and then the balance. I feel like knowing yourself is like walking through a desert. There's so much that you have to learn, and it can be very tough. It can be a very tough road because no one's perfect. Like, I think everybody has things that they're dealing with and the struggle that they have. And I also think about texture, and I think about ceramics, and I want to combine those things to create a show. So I'll be having a show November 17th in downtown Detroit. Oh yeah, I can't wait. And it'll be at the Avant Garden, and it'll have about at least 15 pieces that I haven't even made yet.
Oh my goodness. You got like a little bit over a month to get it together. Wow. Okay, but you know yourself and you know you got it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, thank you.
I'm looking forward to my invite.
Yes, ma'am.
Me and Zach gonna be there.
Oh yeah.
Footage. Yeah. And just having a good time. I'm so excited. I'm very proud of you. I'm very happy that I had the chance to like sit down and kind of talk with you, and I'm happy that we met, because I think the way you look at life, and
we met at Spotlight, right?
We did. We met at Spotlight.
We were both clubbing, technically. We were
I was hustling. But,
you were hustling? Oh, you were networking?
I'm always networking.
Oh, I was drinking.
Oh, yeah, no. Networking. I'm always out. I'm out with purpose. You know? I mean, obviously having a good time and dancing, but a lot of times just where I'm at right now is like, okay, I'm out here trying to network. You see how this just came about? Like, I got my show and my other businesses, you know, so I'm like, I'm always out here trying to network. Because when it gets cold, I'm not going to want to come out the house. Like, I mean, I will, but I'll be less likely want to come out the house. So I'm making the most of it now. I know you got
the outfits for the winter, though. I know you do.
I got a little, you know, I just trying to make it, you know, I try to keep it cute. I keep it cute. But yes, well, thank you so much for coming here on my show and sharing your good energy and just showing people who you are. You know, people, I'm pretty sure, I think that artists, I don't think people ever really get a chance to really know who an artist is, or I can sit down and converse with them, because a lot of times I feel like the artist, like you said in the beginning, just wants the work to speak for itself. And this is an extension of who I am, and then you make up your own idea about it. So I think it's cool. But yeah, well, thank you. We're definitely going to get the information for the exhibit in Muskegon. Just going to put that out there, and then you definitely have to run me that information for your. I want to call it an installation.
Yeah.
Is it called an installation? Could you call it? Or is it an exhibit?
It's an exhibit, but I always treat it like an installation because I want somebody to walk into my show like they left a movie. Like, I want them to leave like with an experience. So I don't think of it just like putting pieces on a pedestal. It has to be very cohesive. So people can, in a way, walk into my mind. That's the experience I would want to give somebody.
I love that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like people are definitely going to feel that when they come and see that. I know I felt that when I walked into your studio.
Oh, that means a lot.
So I think it's going to be good vibes. I can't wait. I'm excited. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. This was episode 5 of Show and Tell. We have Austen Brantley here. Be on the lookout for his upcoming exhibit, November 17th in downtown Detroit. And I will see you next week for our next guest. I hope you're having a good time. I forgot to tell you how to get some snacks to eat or drink, but it's whatever though. We've been more tuned in, so probably didn't even have time to even eat or drink any of that. Okay, now I'm being lame. Anyway, see y'all next week. Much love. Shout out to the Take team. Shout out to Replay Cafe for our lovely spot. And thank you again, Austen Brantley, for being here as our guest on Show and Tell.
Thank you for having me.